This is Toledo Symphony Lab, a behind-the-scenes look at the world of classical music from WGTE Public Media and your Toledo Symphony. I'm Brad Cresswell. Joining me in the studio today is the Toledo Symphony's president and CEO, Zach Vassar. We also have two guests joining us by phone. That is music director Alain Trudel, as well as the TSO's... Hello, Alain. How are you? We also have the TSO principal clarinetist, Georg Klaas. George, say hello. How are you?
Hello, everybody.
We're so glad that you could join us today. We're going to be talking about a concert that's happening this weekend. It is November 21st and 22nd at the Paris Style. Two fantastic composers, of course, Wolfgang Mozart and Ludwig van Beethoven. We're going to be hearing the Clarinet Concerto of Mozart. We'll talk all about that in a little bit. Also, the very first symphony of Beethoven as well. But first, George, I want to talk with you a little bit about your background, and maybe we can begin by you telling us your story. A few weeks ago, we had your wife, Jocelyn Langworthy, on, who is a clarinetist also with the symphony. You two often play together, and she talked about this wonderful concert they gave of the Olivier Messiaen Quartet for the End of Time, which incidentally is still streaming, right, Zach?
That's
Folks
correct.
can find that.
Still viewable, rentable, and enjoyable.
Yeah. Go to stream.artstoledo.com if you're interested in that. And this concert will also be streamed after the fact. It'll be on demand after the fact, but you can watch it live if you so choose as well. You can find all the information on these concerts at toledosymphony.com. Okay, George, I've got a little music here I'm going to pull up. Let's see. Actually, I think we can go with a little Mozart here. There we go. That's nice background music for you, George, don't you think?
Yes, it's very soothing.
Okay. Well, let's hear your soothing life story in 30 words or less.
Well, I've enjoyed a very soothing life here in Toledo. I arrived at the orchestra in 2001, so I have been here for quite a while playing principal clarinet in the orchestra.
Yeah.
And I guess, previous to that, I was living in Los Angeles, where I was freelancing and studying with a very renowned teacher there on clarinet, as well as doing some graduate studies at the University of Southern California. But previous to arriving in Toledo, I'd been taking many auditions with various orchestras around the country and having pretty good success. But then I was lucky enough to win the job in Toledo, and here I am. So, so that's like, the history right up until I arrived in Toledo.
That's your professional history there. So you're going to be celebrating 20 years with the Toledo Symphony next year. Yeah. Are we going to have a party, Zach?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're going to have a party.
George will get to play the opening of Rhapsody in Blue about 30 times in a row.
It'll be at your house, though, right?
That's right.
George, you mentioned being out in L.A. before you came to Toledo, but aren't you originally from Minnesota? Yes,
that's correct. I grew up in Minnesota, just outside the Twin Cities area. I started clarinet when I was about 10 years old, just in the public school, band program, like most kids do. My dad was an amateur saxophone player, but he also had a clarinet laying around at home, and so I picked it up. I liked playing on it, and I guess the rest is history. Although in junior high, I remember wanting to switch to the percussion section because it seemed like a lot cooler to play drum and at the time. But then I realized, I was about 12 or 13, and then I realized there were and at that in Minnesota, I don't know, maybe gender roles were a little more specific.
Yeah.
But the clarinet as well as flute was considered a girl instrument. So I realized at that age, 12 or 13, that there are all these cute girls sitting around me. So I thought, maybe I won't switch.
I see. I see the psychology behind the choice there.
And it actually ended up working for you. You met and married somebody in the clarinet section.
Yeah, and I still have, I still have one cute girl sitting next to me. So, although these days it's about 6 or 8 feet away from me. But
that's true.
You and your wife Jocelyn, you have 2 daughters who I guess are violinists, right?
One plays violin. Her name is Freya, and the other one plays piano and cello. Her name is Elsa, and they both just started their own band instruments recently. Elsa plays saxophone, and Freya plays trumpet now too. So we've got all kinds of sounds going on in the house.
Wow. You can have a little band going on there with the family. Let me ask you, because your name is very Germanic. In fact, your first name is spelled Georg, like German Georg, and your daughters have Germanic, Scandinavian type names. Tell us a little bit about that background in your family.
Sure. My parents are both German immigrants. My dad. He's 91 now, so he was born in 1929, and he grew basically the first 15 years of his life. He grew up in Nazi Germany, and I have some stories. He doesn't like to talk about too much about it. His hometown was destroyed in the war, and he ended up working in Switzerland for a while. His trade was painting, but he had he actually came through Ellis Island in, I believe it was 1952, shortly before they closed Ellis Island. Yeah. And he was able to immigrate to America, and he had an aunt and uncle in St. Paul, Minnesota. So he moved in with them initially, and then he never looked back. He stayed in this country and was able to find good work as a painter. He did go back to Germany many times to see his family. In fact, most of my relatives are still in Germany now. But he married my mother over there in 1970, and then brought her back here, and he built a house in sort of more a rural part of Minnesota, east of St. Paul. And that's where I grew up with my 3 brothers, and we all grew up playing piano and saxophone, because that was my dad's main instrument. And right. he had a little polka band. It was like a trio. It was he played tenor sax. He had a friend who played accordion, and then a guy who played drums, and they would play gigs on weekends for local clubs in St. Paul and dance halls and things like that. So.
Well, it sounds like you had a very musical upbringing, and also that's such a interesting, powerful story there with your dad growing up in Germany.
Well, it was a terrible time, obviously. He was actually he was 15 when the war ended, but he had just been ordered to go to a training camp because they were sending younger and younger boys basically to be trained to fight, right? So when the war ended, he had been in training camp for a few months, and they were told the war is over, so go home. He was like 100 miles away from home, and they tried to walk home. They tried to walk to his hometown called Paderborn, and they were captured by French soldiers in the meantime. On the way, and he spent several months in a prisoner of war camp too. I mean, wow. So that was, I know those basic things. I don't know. He does remember sleeping standing up at times in the camp, and I mean, there were so many worse atrocities that occurred during the war, obviously. But yeah.
And you say he's still with us, right? He's in his 90s.
Yeah. He's 91 now, and he's doing well. So I talk to him. I don't get to see him these days, obviously, but we check in with each other, and he still plays ping pong. He actually still beats me sometimes.
Yeah, in ping pong, that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he still playing the saxophone at all?
No, he gave that up probably maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah. Well, it's great that
at the ripe age of 75.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I hope I can make that longer.
Well, with these streaming concerts, he can tune in and watch you perform a little Mozart this weekend if he wants to.
And my family has been enjoying this new streaming potential
Yeah.
already. So it's really great, especially during the pandemic, that so many people can watch from different parts of the world. And even my cousin in Germany, one of my cousins has watched some of our concerts and really enjoys it too. So,
Alain, you've been very quiet there. You're still with us, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. No, it's just so interesting, it's riveting. I mean, I love hearing, George talk about the history of his family there.
Yeah. Well, we want to spend some time getting to know, especially the musicians of the symphony during this time when they're performing and doing things like this Mozart clarinet concerto, which I want to talk about. Maybe, George, you can sort of set it up for us. This is one of those pieces that, was written for the clarinet because of a specific performer that Mozart heard. Came very late in his life. And it's well known, but there's certainly a story behind it as far as the inspiration goes. George, you want to talk a little bit about the background of the clarinet concerto for us?
Yes, I'd love to. Well, first, a standard disclaimer: I'm by no means a music historian, but I am very fascinated by the story.
But you play one on stage.
Yeah, you play much better than we do, I have to say. Let me pull up a little, see, we're all about pulling up music here. I'm going to pull up a little second movement here of the concerto. So give it your best shot. Tell us a little bit about this piece.
Okay, I'll try to put it in a nutshell. So basically this piece would not have existed without actually three people who were in Vienna at the same time. And obviously Mozart being the main person, and then the musician you mentioned, Anton Stadler, who was a very, very famous clarinetist in his day in Vienna. But also the third person who was key was the instrument maker, Theodor Lotz, L-O-T-Z. And he was a master craftsman in instrument making, not only clarinets, but bassoons and other instruments. So there is a bit of mystery surrounding who actually came up with the idea to create an instrument with an extended range on the clarinet, which is what the basset clarinet is, and that is the instrument Mozart wrote the piece for, not the basset horn, which is I would say a cousin of the clarinet.
Yeah, I get those two mixed up, I have to say.
But I honestly get it confused with the basset hound as well.
Yes.
Which is also a cousin of the basset clarinet.
So anyway, so it's, I can mention briefly that they were all members, they were all Masonic members, so that might have contributed to their sense of collaboration. But for lack of a more harsh word, Stadler seems to have been a bit of a scoundrel. He actually commissioned the work from Mozart, never paid him for it. Mozart gave him the score, and it disappeared. So we don't have the original score.
Isn't it true that Mozart's wife, it should be said that this is one of the last pieces that Mozart wrote. It came in the year of his death. Didn't his wife Constanza later accuse Stadler of selling the music rather than losing it? I mean, she seemed to...
Yeah, there are various reports. He claims it was stolen, but he was traveling throughout Europe actually playing this piece. And
as Mozart's, or did he claim it as his own?
No, he never claimed it was his own work, but he did later claim after Lotz died that he actually invented the basset clarinet.
So he was a bit of a scoundrel.
It appears that way, and I wish this... I mean, it seems like a perfect plot for a sequel to the film Amadeus, like this. There could be. In fact, I wish Peter Schaffer had taken this story, which might have more historical basis than Salieri and Mozart.
Well, I think it's time for a reboot. You can redo it.
Amadeus Clarinet Edition.
Yeah.
It would be called Amadeus, Anton, and Theodore. Or maybe
catchy title.
But so, in fact, there are now at least 18 different published versions of this piece, and we don't have the original manuscript. The only thing, there are 199 measures from a version for basset horn that Mozart earlier started writing, and that's it. So the first published edition was from Breitkopf and Hertel in, I think, 1800, and that the source material for that is, as far as I could read, unknown. So, but it is clear that this instrument with the extended range, so we're talking like 3 extra whole tones down to a low written C, is what Mozart really wanted the piece to be written for. So that is clear, and some people today play it on that instrument, which modern makers are making basset clarinets again. So I won't have one for this particular program, but there are ways to work in the extended range even on a regular A clarinet. So that's what I'll be doing.
Yeah, you just take like a paper towel tube and stick it down there or something like that. Extend the range.
I haven't tried that yet, but I'll give it a shot.
I wouldn't.
It's a possibility. It's a possibility.
So maybe at Zach's party.
Yeah.
There you go.
Can you explain a little bit more about the physics? I think that's a fascinating part of all woodwind instruments, is the way that the notes are created. How do you extend the range on a traditional A clarinet?
Okay, that's a good question. So the clarinet has a cylindrical bore, which first of all, that makes it act differently acoustically than like any other wind instrument, which are all have a conical bore, except the flute has an open head joint, and that's why it is still cylindrical, but it functions acoustically like the conical bore instruments. So those instruments, the conical ones, all overblow at an octave. So when you want to go up into the next range, you're up just an octave. On the clarinet, bass clarinet, basset horn, all those horns, you go up a full 12th, and that actually allows the instrument for its length to actually play a lot lower pitches, and that was the range Mozart was really fascinated by. And that's, I think, how he differs from Beethoven a little bit, in that he really, I think he first heard the clarinet when he was maybe 15 in London, and then subsequently in Germany, and obviously in Vienna too. But anyway, getting back to your question, Zach, so you have an extra few inches basically at the bottom of the instrument, and extra keys and tone holes that produce those.
Yeah, see, I think the paper towel tube would work perfectly. I mean, you just stick it down at the end there, and you might have to cut a few holes in it for to access the different notes, but this is doing it on the cheap, right? I think it'd be a great DIY project.
What would give you that idea?
A great DIY project, so you can, try that at home.
George, was the technique not available, or had people not yet mastered how to get the extra notes out of a standard clarinet? Is that why the basset clarinet was a focus for these 3 gentlemen, these 3 Masons?
Well, the technology was pretty primitive, and the ability to reach these notes was really challenging. And actually, there is no surviving basset clarinet from the period, so we don't know exactly how the maker was able to allow the player to actually access these pitches exactly. But we do know that what they would do, some of these basset horns had like a serpentine shape so that you could actually reach the tone holes with your fingers. And it must have been so much more awkward than modern instruments. But there were also keys that they created to access these tone holes as well. So it's just that's another mystery how Lutz created an instrument that would be able to play this concerto itself. We don't know exactly because we don't have that instrument.
So it is a mystery then. So we don't have the instrument, we don't have the score. I mean, Brad could not be that far off with his idea on a toilet paper roll.
Yeah, I said paper towel roll, but I guess you could use a toilet paper roll if you so choose.
It's smaller,
a little bit shorter. Yeah,
you only get
that's about the right length.
Is it? Okay, all right. Toilet paper wins out for this time.
I got a point.
You did get a point. Speaking of points, I want to jump in here to this little clarinet quiz. Alain, you still with us?
Yes.
Okay. Here's your big chance.
Looking forward to chatting a little bit. Yeah.
Here's your big chance, a clarinet quiz. I've just got a few questions here, and I'm going to bring up a little music, and this goes back to George's father playing in a polka band. I've got the little clarinet polka here. Even though I don't think there's a clarinet in this group. It's called the clarinet polka, so we'll use it. Okay, true or false? The clarinet was invented in France. Is that true or false?
Are we all supposed to answer this? Or?
Yeah, you can answer. Yeah, first person who gets it right wins.
False.
Whoops. I hit the wrong one again. Hang on. Yes, it's correct that it's false. It was actually invented in Germany, right?
That's right.
Yeah, by the Nuremberg instrument maker Johann Christoph Denner. Okay.
I think it's pronounced breakfast.
Something like that, yeah. Brunch.
Sorry.
Johann Brunch. Okay.
Johann Brunch.
Now we're off to a great start. Okay, we'll give that one to George.
Yeah.
Extra credit. What instrument preceded the clarinet?
The chalumeau.
The chalumeau. Excellent. Alain got the one pronounced in French. And okay.
Actually, the register that George was talking about in the clarinet, that is the very attractive one, is the register is also called chalumeau register.
Or the toilet paper register. You can call it that.
Charmin.
The Sherman register.
Okay. I think chalumeau is French for toilet paper.
Yes, exactly. Toilet paper roll, we should say. Okay, speaking of the toilet paper roll, the chalumeau was often used by composers to imitate insects. Is that true or false?
It's true.
It's a little abstract. Actually, well, I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it was. I don't know. It was used.
You wrote it.
It was most often used. Yeah, I wrote this right before we got in here. It was most often used to imitate birdsong, actually.
More sense.
Or sometimes the human voice. Like the turtle dove was a big thing that they used to like to imitate with the chalumeau. Okay, we're going to move on from that. The clarinet gets its name from the trumpet. True or false?
Kind of. From the cornetto, right?
Yeah.
True.
We'll give you a...
Clarino.
Yeah, from clarino, which means a little trumpet, because it sounds like a trumpet, right?
Yeah, actually, there's one early document that said when the clarinet was a primitive instrument, it said it was only to be used outdoors.
Ah, good to know. Only outdoors. Okay.
That was written by the parents of the students who were learning to play the primitive clarinet.
Yeah, it should only be practiced outdoors as well. Okay, the first composer to use a clarinet in the orchestra was... Okay, I'm going to give you three choices. I'll give you three choices. You tell me who it is. Was it Jean-Philippe Rameau? Was it Georg Philipp Telemann? Or was it Antonio Vivaldi? Which one of those three used the clarinet in the orchestra first?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it's Vivaldi, I think.
Yeah, it's actually Vivaldi.
I was.
Get that yay in there. There we go.
Yeah, and that oratorio, I think. I can't remember the title. But,
Yeah. Juditha Triumphans, Judith Triumphant.
Yes.
Yes, he used it in a chorus. Absolutely right. Wow, way to go, Alain. Okay, let me mark that down. Okay, now we're getting into a little more modernist territory here. Which of these celebrities can also play the clarinet? Is it Steven Spielberg, Jimmy Kimmel, or Gloria Estefan?
I think I know this one.
Okay.
Well, it might be a trick question, and
It could be a trick question.
Yeah. But I think Jimmy Kimmel does.
Well, he does, yeah.
I would say the other two also do.
They all do.
Oh, good for you.
They're all clarinetists. Now, which of these John Hughes movies features the clarinet on screen? I'm going to give you 3 of his John Hughes movies. Tell me which one of them has a clarinet on the screen, right? Is it The Breakfast Club? Is it 16 Candles? Or is it Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Which of those 3 has a clarinet?
I'm going to say Breakfast Club. I'm going to say 16 Candles.
We've been down this road before, Zach.
I have no idea.
It was actually in
Ferris
Bueller's Day Off. There's a scene where he plays the clarinet. He picks up the clarinet and starts squawking on it, and he's like, "Never had a lesson in my life."
That's right.
Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, it does ring a bell.
Yeah.
And a clarinet, for that matter.
Evidently, Matthew Broderick picked it up off set. It was part of the set dressing, and he told the producers he could play the clarinet, but he couldn't. and that's the scene they filmed.
I feel like this is when he's at home playing hooky before he gets bored and goes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not getting extra credit for that, though, I have to say. Never had one lesson, that's what he says. Okay. All right. We're in Mozart territory. Mozart's clarinet quintet found a widespread popularity when it was featured in the 1983 finale of which TV show? I'm going to give you 3 TV shows. They all ended in 1983. Which one of them featured Mozart's clarinet quintet in the finale? Is it Taxi? Was it MASH? Or was it Little House on the Prairie? Just take a stab at it.
Was it played or was it just on the soundtrack?
Well, it was both. It was
part of the story.
It was part of the story, yeah.
Huh. I would say Little House on the Prairie, but I don't know.
No, not Little House on the Prairie.
What about Taxi?
Now's your chance, Zach. Jump in there.
Yeah, I'm going to go for MASH.
Yeah, it was in MASH. It was in MASH. There were a group of Chinese musicians that played it at the end for Winchester. Remember Winchester? And then one of them ended up being, killed, was a patient. It's kind of a downer.
Yeah.
And anyway, the reason that Alan Alda, who co-wrote the screenplay, included that Mozart clarinet quintet is because that's how he met his wife. His wife was a professional clarinetist, and he first saw her at a concert playing that particular piece.
Gorgeous work.
And, he told her how great she was, and one thing led to another. So that's a piece that holds a very special place in his heart. Last question. Clarinets have been made out of many different materials.
Toilet paper roll. I know the answer to this one.
No, but I should have added that. Okay. Except, now, which of these materials are clarinets not made out of?
Toilet paper roll.
And we're talking completely. No, I am going to make that toilet paper clarinet, and you're going to see it. I'm going to make a YouTube video and demonstrate it for you. So, this is a hard question to get out of the gate. So, the clarinets are made completely out of a certain material, except for excluding the mouthpiece, because that's almost always, got a reed and whatever. So, you tell me which of these materials a clarinet has not been made out of completely. Is it metal? Are there pure metal clarinets? Are there transparent acrylic clarinets? Are there clarinets made out of marble?
Marble.
or clarinets made out of rubber. All right, I'm going to give it to you, Alain.
How would you?
As far as I know, there aren't any marble clarinets. Have you heard of a marble clarinet?
It'd be
George?
fun to put a marble inside a clarinet, though.
Yeah, but not like a marble that you play games with. I mean,
sounds painfully heavy.
I was just going to say, how would you lift it? How would you construct it too? I feel like it would be so fragile to bore through a piece of marble.
well, I mean, if you made it like, a bass clarinet so that the bell sits on the floor, right?
Yeah.
You could do that.
Yeah.
You just have to stand around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm giving the quiz to Alain. He's the winner. He got at least 3 questions right.
When Merwin's not there.
That's right.
Yeah. Throw in a little extra applause there. Excellent. So Alain wins the quiz. We'll be sure and let Merwin know that he's been usurped as the quiz master. Maybe before we let it go, Alain, you can talk a little bit about the clarinet as it pertains to Beethoven. I mean, we've got this Beethoven symphony also on here.
Yeah.
And Beethoven used clarinets. You're at a vantage point as a conductor to see, how he treated them, or as I've heard from some folks, maybe mistreated the clarinet. I don't know. You're a trombonist. I mean, the trombone also has an interesting history in the orchestra. But as far as the clarinet goes, how is Beethoven different from what Mozart did?
Well, thank you, Brad. Well, first of all, just a little, maybe a little something to help people figure out the basset horn and clarinet. If you think of the clarinet as the soprano to mezzo-soprano of the register, and the basset horn as, not the basset clarinet, but the basset horn as the alto. So, in your mind, if people who don't really make the difference between the two, the sound is much, much slower and a little larger like that. So it's just that I was thinking about that while you guys were talking about it. Of course, Beethoven treated the wind instrument, and it was almost scandalous when he had his first symphony out, because that concert where they did the first symphony. Now we're talking about 1800.
Yeah.
There was a symphony by Mozart to start. I think then some excerpts from Haydn creation here and there. There was his first piano concerto. Then they did the septet, also has a lot of wind music in it. And then they did he improvised a little bit, and then they played the first symphony. That was a concert in Beethoven's day,
Right.
So people would hear how Mozart used the clarinet right at the beginning of the concert. I don't know which symphony it was. I'm sorry. I don't think it's something that's really official which one it was, but it's probably one of the late ones. Maybe 40 that he actually added some clarinets for his friend there, because the original version of the famous G minor, di re re mi re re mi re re si la sol fa mi re do, that one doesn't have clarinet, but he added clarinet later because he just went crazy for the clarinet, as we know it in that concerto. So Beethoven, the way he used them, even there was a quote in the review the next day. It says that it's a very interesting symphony. It's just the big flaw in it is that the woodwind instruments were used too much.
Too many clarinets. Yeah.
Well, exactly. How many would you like me to take out? But but it was kind of a novelty thing to have a wind soloist within a symphony, and of course Beethoven has wind solos everywhere, which actually was started by Mozart a little bit before, but still, what the woodwinds and the brass were used more to do the chords and to to beef up the sound, if I can say it like that, of the orchestra, to make it more intense. But to have different solos of all the woodwinds, and especially in the clarinet, because people were used to bassoon, a lot of bassoons and Haydn, but in the clarinet that was really from Mozart to Beethoven. And Beethoven, like George said, he used the clarinet in another register, a register that's more in the soprano and a higher register a little bit. That makes it that it creates exchanges between the flute, the oboe, and the clarinet in pretty much the same register, which is very different on how Mozart used it. If, for an example, you can just listen to the beginning of the Requiem, just the first few notes. You'll hear it and it's like, oh, wow. if you play with a clarinet that's a copy from that time, actually that's almost chalumeau kind of sound and register. And I think Mozart saw it, and also goes with the Mason ideology, that it's more to celebrate another kind of ideology than in Beethoven. And Beethoven is very much virtuosic and is treated like an instrument. We can already hear, especially in that first symphony that we're playing, you can hear the doors of the Romanticism open all of a sudden. That piece doesn't start on the right chord, if we might say so. It starts on a dominant 7, which is like, where are we going? It talks about where we're going. It doesn't talk about where we are, which is a great indication of the Romantic era, because it's more, the man as a general term, it talks more about where we want to be, how we want to feel, where we want to go, than where we are at this moment. And it's just the beginning of that symphony gives you that instability, but that moves forward a little bit. So that's a really great symphony. And it's his first. I mean, like every composer, you try to put so much in your first symphony. It's probably his like third or fourth try at a symphony. So you have all the best that he could do until that point. And he could still hear a little bit. So that's interesting. It's the only symphony he wrote not being deaf.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I never thought of that before, that it's the only symphony he wrote before he actually suffered from deafness.
Yeah, because the second one, he already wrote the Heiligenstadt Testament, saying, I'm leaving this world, and he was very depressed because he couldn't hear anymore. So, this is the only piece, and he started it 5 years before, which is very uncustomary for Beethoven. He always has this little book and he writes stuff in it, but he tried and he tried and he tried again, and then finally, it's difficult to come up with a symphony after Mozart's Jupiter. Well, he didn't call it Jupiter, but now it's called Jupiter Symphony. But the triptych of the last 3 symphonies by Mozart that were written as a freelance composer was the first time that somebody actually just wrote symphonies because they felt it had to come out. And Beethoven followed in those steps and took it even, it really opens up the Romantic era.
Wow, fantastic.
It's a great suite to the music we played last month of Chevalier Saint-Colombe, because he also was going in that direction.
The Chevalier de Saint-Georges, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Colombe de Saint-Georges. Sorry about that. Yeah. So it's a great continuity, but we also have Mozart in both of the programs, because it's important to go back to the basics and to what links all of this together. Because Mozart was a free thinker, right? So his clarinet concerto comes from that too. As we know, he wasn't getting paid for that. He thought he was, but anyway.
Right. Well, there are a lot of wonderful stories associated with both of these works, and I think they complement each other very nicely. I do want to mention that the concert is happening this weekend, the 20th and 21st of November. The 21st performance, you can live stream. More information about that at ToledoSymphony.com. After the fact, the concert will be up there streaming along with all the other concerts from the TSO, and you can find those at stream.artstoledo.com.
I just want to say I'm so excited for this concerto. I remember when I first heard it, it was the Benny Goodman Boston recording. It was the concerto and the clarinet quintet.
Right.
And it's that slow movement, the one that you were playing as George was talking earlier, that just stopped me in my tracks. The whole concerto is amazing. But, if I have to take a couple sides of vinyl with me to a desert island, it's the slow movement of the clarinet concerto that would have to be with me, because it just transports me in a very special way, and it has consistently over the years. And you think about now, making music now in our strange world, I'm looking forward to seeing the entire peristyle, and those watching online have that method of transportation. And I look very much forward to hearing George's performance of it.
Yeah. What do you say, George? Are you ready?
I just have to say I better go practice now.
No pressure. No pressure at all.
In this time where we have to modulate the size of the orchestra because of the COVID, And we're still trying to find the greatest repertoire we can play. And although we cannot play, the full Brahms or Mahler symphonies, this clarinet concerto by Mozart, when it was the year of Mozart 250th, there was a big by the BBC a big survey that was taken, and this piece was with the Requiem, the two most favorite pieces of the repertoire of Mozart's repertoire for the general public everywhere. So for us to be able to still play that quality of repertoire is a testament to the organization, to our players that are willing to be on stage where a lot of other orchestras are not on stage, and to of course our team, administration, everybody's working in the same direction to have an orchestra on stage live in Toledo for our community. So that's very important, and to have that kind of repertoire. And on top of it, to feature one of our own, because we have superstars in the orchestra. It's a fantastic orchestra, as you all know. But I think it's amazing that we can feature our own, very own George playing this concerto with us.
Yay! Yeah, we look forward to that. This program is a production of WGTE Public Media in collaboration with our sponsor, the Toledo Symphony, with generous support from the Rita Barber Kern Foundation. You can download episodes of this program as a podcast by going to our website at wgte.org/lab. You can also subscribe to us through your podcast app of choice, including Apple and Google Podcasts. Don't forget, you can find more information about the TSO's streaming concerts at ToledoSymphony.com or at stream.artstoledo.com. My thanks to Zach Vassar, Alain Trudel, and Georg Klaas for joining us today. I'm Brad Cresswell. You've been listening to Toledo Symphony Lab from FM 91.